I can't throw the fucking slingshot away. God damn it.
Where'd you get a slingshot from?
Level 40 at the mine. I think they're useless. I've never been able to hit anything with one.
Oh, okay. Rain was... God, Rain... He was telling me about last night how he was worried that he was gonna get something. What was it? He thinks there's mold in the walls of his bedroom or something, and he was freaking out about getting something from it. I can't remember what it was. Some sickness that's related to mold, I guess. And I was trying to reassure him. I was like, man, look, there's probably, you're probably fine. Nothing to worry about. And then he was telling me about,
Hopefully so.
Telling me about how there was a stink bug on the pizza that his mom brought home, and like just all these horrible things. Like, but the more he said, the more I kept just laughing because it got funny. It was sad, but it was also hilarious in a way.
Yeah, there is a certain dark humor to it.
Are these dying?
Yeah, looks like it. We need to water them.
But I watered them yesterday.
Yeah, it may just be a weird fluke. Alright, we got 5 iron.
I wonder if this game goes by real life mechanics where it's not good to continuously plant the same patch of dirt, the same thing every year.
I'm not certain. I do know
we never do soybeans or corn in the same field 2 years in a row. We always alternate.
The game I got into before this one, that was my first introduction to farming games, called Rune Factory, which in my mind is Rune Factory 4 is still one of the best games I've ever played in my life. I know in that one, the soil had every square of soil had an individual quality and richness rating to it. You had to take into mind and use to customize what you grew, and you had to do things like fertilize individually and take care of your soil in different ways if you wanted to grow stuff effectively. I'm not sure if this game takes it quite that seriously. Actually, come to think of it, this is kind of an interesting question if you maybe have looked into it before. In Rune Factory, one of the best ways to revitalize soil and get it back in good shape was to take corn, crush it up, and then spread it in the soil. Does that sound like it makes any sense?
No, it doesn't. I don't see how corn would have any sort of,
So corn doesn't... this isn't a thing that people really do.
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, a lot of people will combine their corn and leave about a foot or so of stalk still in the ground, and then, sow, their next year's whatever the hell in it. But,
yeah. I know when I first got out here, I had to learn what detasseling was, since so many of the teenage clients I had spent all summer, or at least not all summer, that the 2-week period, I guess, where they have to detassel corn, that was their main job, and they were making tons of money off it.
Anything corn related, Nebraska thrives.
That and beef.
Corned
I
beef.
still feel kind of sad we didn't actually get to do, go to... There's a place in Omaha, which apparently is, not a super expensive steak shop, but it's, the favorite of Warren Buffett.
Oh, yeah,
Who's
you told me about that.
Yeah, it sounded really good, and not much for, fancy steak, but I must admit, that, sounded pretty tempting.
Warren Buffett, billionaire.
Yep. Dairy Queen billionaire. Although, I don't know, I think I may be some kind of weird heretic with meat. I tend to eat ketchup on a lot of stuff, which, I think sorely places me in the same category as heretics. But,
You don't put it on your steaks, do you?
when I was a kid I did, but I didn't really have steak that much. I mean, that's the thing, I've had, at a friend's wedding recently, they had roast beef, and they had, a big sort of leg of it or whatever it is, with pink in the middle and all that.
Yeah.
And the thing that pissed me off is, the outer edges that were, cooked was, literally the most delicious thing I'd ever had in, years. It was fucking unbelievable. Then you got about an inch in where it was just pink and dripping, and that bit tasted like shit to me.
Well, some people love, love that pink kind of rare taste. I've never been a fan though. Ever.
Yeah, I guess it's the same people that enjoy the fat cap on meat.
Yeah. I usually try to cut that off.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I mean, like, melting it in a pan is awesome, because, I mean, like, melted fat added to meat is great.
It gives it flavor.
But, like, oh yeah, it's fucking delicious. But, like, I can't understand why anybody of their own volition would be like, you know what I really want? I want, like, a fucking mouthful of chewy gristle. I want that goddamn fat in my mouth, and I want it to just sit there and act like a spongy rubber on my tongue the entire time I'm chewing at it.
Well, you've never had...
I want my jaw to ache.
You've never had crackling. It's cracklings, have you? I guess.
That's like, well, cracklings is like fat, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of like
That's cooked, though.
fried, though. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You can fry fucking anything that's gonna be good. You could fry a Twinkie wrapper, and I'm pretty sure it would taste decent.
Oh, I've had a deep-fried Twinkie and a deep-fried Oreo, and...
Those at least make sense. Deep-fried butter scares me.
Ugh.
That seems like a suicide pact. Like, if somebody ate that, I would literally start to ask them, like, you know, if they've made plans to end their life recently.
I probably need to eat healthier than I do. I mean, just because I'm not fat doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in shape and healthy.
Well, I mean, it'd probably be a decent idea, but at the same time, especially just because there may be a point at which, if your metabolism does change, you might be at risk of either gaining weight or something, but... I mean, it's hard to argue you're not in damn good shape right now.
I know,
I mean,
but
like-
I don't want to, like, have a heart attack out of nowhere anyways, despite that.
Well, yeah.
Like, I don't understand. He's perfectly fine. Well, yeah, but he ate takeout every single day of his life, so what do you expect?
That's not necessarily a problem, depending upon the takeout and the amount eaten and such. I mean, I've seen people who cook for themselves and still would die faster. Still, though, I mean, I gotta say, given the interest you've shown in food, you do seem like a natural candidate for, like, having a passion to learn cooking.
I know how to cook decently. I don't know how to cook, like,
Yeah.
exquisite. I can't bake a cake, but I don't think it would be that hard. I just haven't ever baked a cake before.
Yeah.
My mom
But, I mean, if
actually used to do that for, like, a living, and she would...
Really?
Yeah, she would, like, draw, like, amazing things. Like, 'cause she could, like, do art on the... You know, with the icing and stuff.
Yeah. There's definitely an art to that.
Yeah.
Well, it's something you can always pursue in the future.
I'll open up my own restaurant.
Zoe's. We'll leave you very full by the end.
Everything's cream-filled. Everything.
Especially you. I don't know, it could be kind of like a Dick's Last Resort setting kind of thing. That would probably work out well for it.
What's the name of that place where they insult you?
I think that's Dick's Last
Is that what
Resort.
it... Okay, that's what I was thinking.
That's one of them, at least. There's also like a famous cafe in New York. I remember my parents had a story. I guess they went there when they were on vacation once. And their experience was basically summed up when they arrived by the waitress arriving, picking up the tip the previous people had left, and turning to them saying, "See those cheap sons of bitches left me?"
Surprised that someone hasn't gone there and complained about it and, like, tried to make a big deal out of it or something.
Oh no, that's what they want. I mean, I'm sure these are women and like men. I'm assuming by now too that are. That's like walking like a martial arts studio and asking if there are any fighters around. I mean, you're walking to the lion's den. That's just a poor plan all around. Actually, it reminds me. You know the comedian Eddie Izzard?
That name sounds familiar.
He's a really famous, like, British comedian, also transvestite.
Okay.
Or as he puts it, an executive transvestite.
Okay.
But one of my favorite bits of his, he's has this whole bit where he got into a fight when he was in England at one point, and he was talking about how the defense that the guys who attacked him had in court was that he started it. And he was like, "Oh yeah, because that makes sense. A lot of blokes go around dressing up in women's clothing and then start fights. That makes a lot." they think I was doing? Just like, wandering in, smearing makeup. And I was like, come on, we're the fighters in this town. I'll put a little more on. Ooh, level 5. Just got to level 50, and we got Tundra Boots,
Ooh,
which
nice.
is slightly better defense.
I don't guess they help at all in the wintertime for anything.
No, we don't really have to plan for much in the winter. It's just a matter of, like, defense stats.
Not like in Don't Starve Together where we had to have a whetstone or like a
Oh, the hot rock.
yeah, I had to carry that around or we'd freeze to death.
Yeah, that was rough. Now, if we do get to play with Rain again at some point, that might be a fun one to try with him. I mean, heck, maybe he'd figure out how to kill the damn thing.
We had a good strategy for handling the dogs, at least. If we could find a herd of
Yeah.
beefalo.
But, I mean, let's be honest, that beefalo strategy was basically us manipulating the game. That was not us, like, having weapons or, like, a hunting strategy. That was us basically just abusing the system.
Well, we'd use
Now,
the
admittedly,
environment to our
it worked.
advantage.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing, it worked. But it also meant that when the unit, like that fucking deericorn thing showed up at some point, we got proper fucked.
Yeah, he slaughtered those beefalo without even trying. That strategy
that was
wasn't
pretty
going to work
grim.
for him.
I got some jade.
Alright, where you at, Goth Kid? Come on. I've been trying to build up a rep with you, but I don't see you anywhere.
Is there some specific reason you're trying to build up a rep with the goth kid?
Well, only because he happens to be the one that always walks by me when I'm fishing, and I just stop and talk.
Ah.
So I'm like, I'll make a point to be friends with him.
I'm not actually... I think they did add a few same-sex relationships in the game. Like, same-sex partners you can actually approach and get to, marry you. I don't know which ones they are.
I mean, that wasn't my goal. I just wanted to be friends with the guy. If it happens, it happens.
Look, just because you want to fuck the cute goth boy.
I'm going back home. It's already 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I should leave. I'm not going to finish this mine level.
I got 3 geodes from today, though.
Nice. I've got a lot more iron, so we should have enough to actually make a few iron tools. And if we could afford it at some point, if you can get an axe up to iron and I can get a pickaxe to iron, we're gonna have, we'll be moving much faster. Iron pickaxe makes a huge goddamn difference in terms of mining speed.
Oh, I bet. Omni geode. Ooh.
Yep, those are the best geodes. Or they have the best drop pool.
Wait, did I pet my cat today? Oh, the water bowl's full, so I'm guessing I did. Lady, it's 11 o'clock. You gonna go home?
Probably not, actually. Ooh, I got a yam, actually. You should hold on to that.
Okay.
Alright, I'll hop in bed. Oh, what'd I get? Hey, level 4 mining.
Nice.
Level 3 combat.
Getting close to summer, I think. 6 more days?
Yep, I think so. Although I'm probably gonna have to call it here or after one more day, as my brother, one more day probably. Call of Duty unlocks in like 5 minutes. My brother's gonna want to play Blackout,
Okay.
but I can
Damn
do
it,
one more
that's
day.
I just dug up a cauliflower.
No!
Didn't mean to, it just happened.
How dare you! I can't throw him a goddamn slingshot. Why not? I don't want it.
You can't put it in a chest or something?
I can't, apparently. I could put it in a chest and forget about it, but I mean, that just seems like I'm admitting defeat. Now, I may go fishing today.
It's taking forever for these beans to come in.
Yeah, they should come in just before the end of the season, I think. But I'm pretty sure we had enough time left.
Should probably just dig these ones that are dead up, but whatever.
Yeah, I'd say keep them there. Might still work. I really feel like there's not a lot of visible progress being made on that barn, or coop.
She's just standing there hammering the same piece of wood over and over again, trying to make me think that she's doing something.
In reality, she's just sitting there and trying to sneak surreptitious glances to figure out what our relationship is. Why do these two very quiet men live together alone on this farm?
Well, let's keep going. Ooh, a leak. Thank you. I guess I shall fish today as well.
What's your fishing up to in terms of level?
I don't know. I think I'm like 6, maybe?
You can check in your inventory.
Oh, skills. Here we go. Yeah, 6.
Nice.
Farming level 3, mining level 1, foraging level 2, and combat level 0. I've not
Sounds
been
about right.
fighting too much.
Yeah, but you don't have to yet. And actually, if you wait long enough for me to get down to like level, I think 100 in the mine, you can basically get a weapon that will let you breeze through most of the early levels of it.
Right. I still need to get that better sword you found.
Yep, it's down at level 20 if you want it. But there's a much, much better one at level 100, 110, 120, something like that. Actually, no, this mine only has 120 levels to it. There's also a mine you unlock once you beat this mine called the Skull Mine, and the Skull Mine is an endless, randomly repeating one.
Sounds terrifying.
Yep, it also is full of much stronger creatures and drops much, much better loot. It's the only mine where you'll actually find iridium. And for every floor you go down, the chance of finding iridium rises by 0.5%.
Oh. Okay.
But you have to start from the top every single time.
Ah, no going back.
Yeah, so there's no shortcuts. You basically just have to, you know... It's a race to see how fast you can get down the mine.
Have to bring plenty of supplies, I guess, to keep yourself healed up.
Yep. Especially as there are legitimately some monsters down there that are actually invincible.
Really?
Yep, and some that can only be killed with bombs.
Huh.
Yeah, I think the worst of these mummies you find that you can knock them out with a sword, but they will just keep getting back up again about 20 seconds later unless you blow them up.
Guess it's just best to knock them out and keep going.
Often, yeah.
Come on. Give me a fish. There we go.
Man, I cannot wait to see what a clusterfuck Call of Duty is tonight. Like, I'm excited to play it, but I'm expecting it to not even remotely work.
Servers will be down.
Yeah, probably.
Everything will be lagging.
I mean, actually, like, one of the worst launches I've ever seen for an online game was Diablo 3. It basically didn't work for, like, 3 days.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, it was one of those massively popular games where they couldn't have afforded to run the servers at first at capacity to actually handle it.
Well, I can safely say I've beaten it.
You have. But you haven't seen the ending yet. Although you may have seen as much of it as you ever want to see.
I don't know. Maybe. I saw the original ending, at least, or the storyline ending.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've seen the ending of the story. I don't mean to discredit that. It's one of those games where I would happily go back to it at some point to get the interest, but I also am not, like, super eager to push you if it's not the kind of game you enjoy.
I liked it. It wasn't bad. I mean, I did play it all the way through as far as I did, so...
Oh yeah, I mean, well, yeah. It's funny to me only because, like, it's the same reaction if you remember Rain's whole thing of, like, you didn't even start the game yet. It's, like, I'm stuck here saying, like, well, no, what you're saying makes perfect sense. I mean, you did finish the game, you clearly enjoyed it to a fair amount, but it also just seems very strange at the same time, just due to the other, like, weird endgame stuff that the game is seemingly based around.
Technically, you beat the bare minimum amount.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically you did beat the game. I mean, there's no argument there. You absolutely beat the game. But in the comparison of what the average player who really gets into the game would think, you basically beat the tutorial. Or it'd be like saying that, like, you beat Payday 2 because you beat every mission.
That's an argument I can relate to. You just have to put everything in those terms.
I know I have to find, like, metaphors for a lot of stuff in my work, and I really don't mean to imply that, like, Payday is the only metaphor for you, because, you know, you're obviously more complex a person than that, but I do find it funny to try and put everything in Payday metaphors.
It might be harder to do than you think, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, a different situation where I could actually do the same kind of metaphor work, and I'm actually struggling a bit.
You go to the restaurant and you keep getting the same thing over and over again. Like, imagine if every time you played Payday you did the same heist. Oh god, you're right, I gotta try something else.
Of course, the only problem there is, like, if I was having this argument with you in public, it would really be this matter of, like, look, this is just like the time you only cooked meth over and over again. No, we're talking about a game.
For 6 hours straight, and you killed all kinds of cops.
You killed like 100 police officers, like in the first hour.
People are just looking at, whoa, what the fuck?
Fun fact, actually, one of the guys I interviewed today was convicted of cooking meth.
Well, I mean, it's a profitable thing to do if you don't get caught, I suppose.
Oh yeah, a lot of crime is great if you don't get caught. Life hack. Don't get caught. Life hack. Crimes are significantly less lucrative if you get caught. Wow, I'm actually getting a lot of fish today.
Now, the smart thing would be to keep the fish and put them in our pond and then breed them. Instead of just
That would be kind of neat to do.
Smitty Werben Jaeger Jensen. He was number one.
Hmm?
SpongeBob. I don't know why I have no idea why it even came to my mind. I just... Smitty Werben Jaegerman Jensen. He was number one.
Well, seeing as I am a person who has never made a strange reference, I sit here in judgment of you. At least you get most of my references.
You understand. You don't think I'm crazy, do you? No, come on.
Well, yes, but I mean...
It'd be like that American POW in that Vietnamese prison video where he's like blinking out torture in Morse code.
Turns out you're an undercover FBI agent. You're like, just really did not luck out with your assignment of who you had to try to warm up to.
Well, they say there's always someone watching through your webcam. Which is going to be weird for you, because yours is in a weird position. They're going to be like, what the fuck's wrong with this webcam?
You get a message from the FBI. Get a better laptop, asshole.
I think I
Speaking
saw
of
that
which,
there was
actually,
actually a laptop that had a webcam on it that you could like push down and like it clicks up and whatever.
yeah, it's a it's one of those designs I like the idea of, but I also think is probably a really bad idea. Kind of like, if you have the cars that have those headlights that pop up, they look kind of cool, but they always like the first thing to break.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, if you give it a moving piece, the moving piece will break eventually.
I've seen some of these 3D printers out there that are pretty cool though.
Oh yeah.
They're literally like they're made so that every part can be 3D printed if a part breaks.
Yeah. Honestly, given a little more sort of like accuracy or like quality in 3D printers, I really want to get one someday just for fun. And I've seen some really cool ones, but a lot of the ones right now are still riding that weird line that they've gotten a lot less expensive and they can do a lot more and they're a lot more reliable, but they still require a lot of fiddling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a friend in England who bought one on a whim, probably a somewhat poor whim, but despite having enough technical knowledge to build their own computer and stuff like that, could not get it working.
Really?
Yeah, which alarmed me a little bit, just because, I would have probably said this person is technically proficient enough, they should be able to do it.
Huh. Wouldn't think they'd be that complicated.
Well, the way they described it made it sound like it was very fiddly and hard to control. And I've got a different friend I used to RP with, actually, who, they got one and were using it to print out little D&D miniatures.
Yeah.
And the D&D miniatures they were printing, came out pretty well in most cases, but had a few that just really struggled with quality issues.
I don't know. 3D printing is still kind of new, so I guess
Yeah.
You can expect stuff to be a little.
Yeah, stuff would be a little rough
Yeah.
at points.
Bedtime.
Oh wait, actually, let me grab one more thing before I go to bed, just to remind myself. Got a few different minerals that we need to bring to Gunter. Gunter. There we go. Getting tired. Asleep. We should have a fair amount of money today, I think.
Level 7 fishing.
3,280 fishing. 4,000 gold today.
Nice.
Not fucking bad. See, I told you we'd be making money.
All those weird new
Now
gay
we start
guys. All they do is fish all day long.
You know about those gay guys. They do love the fish.
Oh wait, the chicken coop is done.
Hey, coop's done. Alright. Well, I need to stop for now because, yeah, apparently it's about time to play other stuff at the moment, and I promised my brother I'd play with him when he was ready. But, yeah, that actually gives us something cool to do next time around. We can actually get chickens.
Okay, well, real quick. This guy's asking me what I want to set the cave up for. Mushrooms or bats? Which one do you want?
Oh, mushrooms is much better.
Okay, mushrooms it is.
So we now have an endless stock of mushrooms.
Sweet.